consultant's role, because the consultant in this difficult business time, in his cooperation, should make up for any of the gaps or weaknesses in the client's role. The last option for the consultant is to resign, reject a client, except on ethical grounds. On all other issues, I think the consultant's intellectual challenge is how to help the client. So the first thing to do for the consultant is to retain, for the client to do is to retain the existing consultant. So wherever I talk to corporates in CIA or FICCI or other fora, I talk about the point that Mr. Sarup also emphasized, that in difficult times, it's not an idea to cut training, some amount of advertising salience, or consulting advice. The client should look at this as a small capital investment, not as a cost, with very high multiple returns. If you take that alone and measure it, the returns will be very high. He may ask for a fresh diagnosis in these difficult business times. So without waiting for problems to surface, what the client needs to do now is to both internally debate among his team as well as ask the consultant. You have had a past understanding of the organization. Together we have looked at problems. Can we make a fresh, clean slate diagnosis in the current context in terms of Murphy's Law? What are the vulnerabilities? What can strike us? What can go wrong? Some of these things may not happen, but it is better to anticipate them. The third step that the client needs to do, apart from the original core corporate consultant whom he retains, add specialist consultants for a short period, depending on the diagnosis. This is the time to bring in experts in a particular area. This may have to do with mainly cost management, because that's the quickest thing that you can look at, not indiscriminately, but carefully in terms of value analysis, value engineering, raw material, energy, process time, packaging, and to some extent right sizing the organization. One of the things about Indian organizations is that they're generally soft. They don't do what Intel does. Intel every year, even in boom periods, lets 5% of the manpower go, although they are very good, and they're above the normal average of industry talent, because they want to replace it, because that's a ruthless kind of management. And people know that. And companies like Levers, ITC do the same. They recruit twice the number of MBAs that they need and shade out in the first 3 to 5 years. But this is a time when that soft management is too expensive for the company's stakeholders. The manager may be comfortable by being soft, but it is at the cost of the shareholder, the customer, and the society as a whole. So this is the time to look at the real underperformers, low potential, as well as those who are with attitude problems of rebellion, argumentativeness, non-cooperation. If the organization may have tried enough and invested enough in them, this is the time to let them go. The client, consultant from his side, what are some of the things that he needs to look at? Even without being invited, if the invitation comes well and good, but if not being invited by the client, if there is enough long-term relationship and trust, the consultant may do some homework at his cost, looking at the economy, the sector, the company, some inter-firm comparisons and benchmarking. This is pure research, unpaid for, but at this point of time. It may get covered later if one is successful. Offer a proactive diagnosis for that client under the current difficult business times. That may make the client wake up. It will not be immediate. The client will get rejected. Even if the CEO buys it, some members of his team will argue against it. The CFO will be a penny pincher and not look at the return from that investment. And one has to go through the usual kind of process of not hard selling, but education and conversion. This is a time also for consultancy to offer lower fees. One extreme end of it is the equity risk to be taken. But I think in very large organizations, they are too big for us to take any kind of equity risk there. But certainly lower the fees. Or in some cases where the business times are not so difficult for the client, difficult but not too difficult, and the sector may be among the early ones to revive in the new upcycle and the bull market, agree on deferred payments. The fee may remain the same, take some of it up front, and on a results basis by 31st March 2010, take some of it next year or even defer it over. That depends on the business plan and the cycle. And finally, provide flexible consultants. I think the consultants who are over-specialized narrowly would have some difficulty. But all of us, by and large, have either an MBA kind of education or during a career, of rotations between divisions and functions, we do pick up the core MBA multifunctional interdisciplinary management model. So this is a time you don't have to be an expert in a deep sense in each and every field. This is not long-term technology, capex, or restructuring. So the consultant should be able to offer a variety of services at this point in time by reading, educating oneself, and looking at case studies like General Motors, which Mr. Athreya mentioned. So first is turnaround consult is perhaps the single most important need now. Companies which are either nearing break-even or even making losses, in some cases eroding the reserves and coming close to the BIFR kind of status. I think the idea of management consulting is that any problem can be attacked. From a given situation, however hopeless, we can make an improvement. So turnaround consulting is one. Second is cost management. This is not only for cost accountants. Cost management is, by and large, a combination of science as well as common sense. And it's a simple analysis of the cost structure, variance analysis, the A category variances, and where there is low-hanging fruits in terms of cost savings. Advise the client to go into contribution margin focus rather than net profit, total cost base, net profit. Wherever possible, quick improvements relative to competition only. It's only a differentiation. It doesn't have to be absolute Six Sigma global Japanese kind of quality, but can there be a quality plus which can be used in this difficult time to retain a larger base of customers? It's unlikely that we will get new customers accruing when people are themselves going into a saving mode and reducing their consumption. And certainly advise the client to provide a price stimulus. 1982, I wrote a two-part article in the All India Management Association magazine. At that time, I already talked about the concept of development pricing. I said the duty of Indian entrepreneurs and corporates is not to look at total cost, high margin pricing. This economy needs the kind of Henry Ford pricing, which Tata is now doing with Nano. That if you want India's potential to be realized from a 3.5% growth rate to go to 6, even before reforms, management should have been. This is the time now for the clients to look at a contribution margin-based differential pricing. The same customer group will accept a year or two down the road when things are better, quality, etc. is better, that they will pay a higher price. This is not a problem. I think every downturn looks life-threatening, but there is plenty of life later on. So these are some ways in which the cooperation